Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cavell session for the NL Cloud Communications. This session is being led by Patrick Watson, Head of Research and UC Lead from Cavell. I will pass you now to Patrick, who will provide you with the insights for you to lead the way in the channel.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for joining, everyone. So what I wanted to take you through today was a sort of 45-minute presentation looking specifically at cloud communications market research for the Netherlands. So this is we conduct research on a number of markets across the globe, including Western Europe. And the Netherlands in particular. And the data that I wanted to look at today was specifically looking at the cloud communications market as of the first half of 2024 and how that's going to relate to you from a channel perspective in terms of how you can best succeed in the channel. So first of all, I thought I'd just take you through a sort of curated highlights in our executive summary. So the Dutch market is one of the most advanced markets we see in Europe in terms of both technology adoption and also cloud adoption. That's partly due to the nature of the market in terms of the connectivity provision available and also the solutions that have been taken to market by leading incumbent providers in the market. So the Dutch market, and I'll come on to a bit of detail about how heavily penetrated by cloud solutions we think the Dutch market is, but it's one of the most advanced markets that we track in Europe alongside markets such as the UK. And part of that's because of the connectivity infrastructure within the Dutch market. Mobility is a key focus within the market, and we're talking about fixed mobile convergence or mobile UC, so the native integration of UC applications and mobile applications within the market. And interestingly, Odido, one of the providers within the market, have recently joined the Teams Phone Mobile program, which is Microsoft Teams program where you can add mobility capability natively into Teams and assign a mobile user number to Teams. We haven't seen a huge amount of success of Teams Phone Mobile on a sort of global basis yet, but we do think it could be a key factor in the market as there is a lot of demand for integrated mobility capability and unified communications within the Netherlands. I'll come on to how we break the market down in terms of market segmentation in terms of business size, but we're actually forecasting that both the lower end of the Dutch market in terms of business size and the top end of the market in terms of larger enterprises are likely to see the highest forecast growth in the short to medium term, and that's primarily because the mid-market sector has been the sector that's been most successful in terms of UCaaS uptake or cloud communications uptake previously. So we're forecasting that either end of the market is likely to accelerate to catch up with that mid-market sector. I mentioned Microsoft Teams Phone Mobile taken to the market by Odido, but Microsoft and Microsoft Telephony is also a key factor within the Dutch market. Microsoft has a strong presence in the Netherlands, and Microsoft Teams telephony options, so that's direct routing, Operator Connect, Teams Phone Mobile now, and Microsoft calling plans already play a significant role within the Dutch market, and I'll take you through the sort of proportionality of Teams within the market in the coming slides. One of the things that we think has been a really key factor is ability to differentiate on a UCaaS proposition. And I think from a channel provider perspective, one of the things that everyone on this call needs to consider is how you differentiate yourself in terms of your UCaaS offering. UCaaS is now a really mature solution within many cloud markets. And as I said, the Dutch market, one of the most mature that we look at globally. So differentiating yourself from competitors in terms of your UCaaS provision that you're taking to market is becoming increasingly difficult in terms of features and functionality. So one of the key ways that we've seen that providers and channel providers look to differentiate is by holding those trusted relationships that you'll hold with your customers and also differentiating yourselves with exceptional customer service. So those are sort of some of the key highlights, and I'll take you through the sort of background behind a few of those on the coming slides. I wanted to give you a little bit of a market overview of the Dutch market, which many of you on the call will be familiar with in terms of sort of the demographics around population and the number of companies and the number of people who are within the working population. Excuse me. We track 68 cloud communication providers within the Dutch market. And I should clarify what we determine as our definition of a cloud communications or UCaaS user. So specifically, we only count users within our numbers who are leveraging a publicly hosted multi-tenant UCaaS or cloud PBX solution. So if we look at the overall business telephony base within the Dutch market, we see that there are around 6 million telephony users in the Dutch market, and around 60%, 58% of those, 60% of those are already using, as I said, a publicly hosted multi-tenant cloud solution, which makes it one of the most mature in Europe in terms of the level of cloud into the overall business telephony base. And I've highlighted some key figures on the right here. As of the end of 2024, we think the Dutch market would be more than 60% penetrated by cloud solutions, rising to more than 80% by 2028. So over the next 4 years, the Dutch telephony market is going to be very heavily saturated by public UCaaS multi-tenant solutions. In terms of user numbers, I think the positives for everyone on the call today and the channel audience is that we're still forecasting really significant growth. So at the end of 2024, just over 3 million cloud communications users, rising to more than 4 million by 2028. So we're forecasting nearly another million users to be deployed in the market over the 4 years. Obviously, all of those users are up for grabs for everyone within the channel, and that presents a really sizable opportunity in terms of revenue. So here I'm looking at the annual revenue in euros for the Dutch market. So as you can see, we see really extensive growth in that revenue that is obviously available for everyone who's competing domestically in the market to grasp if you've got the right solutions to take to end customers. I think one of the key points to point out here, and I'll come on to this later on as well within the presentation, is within that revenue number, we're actually only counting the core ARPU, the core average revenue per user. So that's the license seat, associated minutes, termination and numbering. We're not actually counting all of the associated value-added services markets. And I think value-added services is a real opportunity for everyone on this call. If you've got the right partner and you're able to overlay additional value-added services on top of cloud communications and UCaaS, it really amplifies that revenue opportunity. So these are just a few market highlights. What I wanted to do on the next few slides is take you through in a bit more detail how we break that down in terms of market segmentation. And I should say that Cavell, all of the data that we collate from Cavell effectively is fed back from the industry. So as I said, we talk to nearly over 60 providers in the Dutch market. They provide us with anonymized data in terms of their growth. That anonymized data feeds into our data models, and then we utilize that for market sizing and also market forecasting into the future. As well as that data that we get back from industry providers, we also augment that data with enterprise research. So every year we survey tens of thousands of businesses globally, hundreds and thousands of businesses in Western Europe about their use of technology, their adoption of technology, and their preferences when using a particular provider. If we look at the Dutch market, so we're looking at a snapshot here up until halfway through 2024. As I said, we run our research 6 months retrospectively because it takes us that amount of time to gather the data from all the providers in market. As you can see, out of those several million cloud communications users that are already deployed in the Netherlands, the largest proportion of them are deployed in the large enterprise sector, so organizations with more than 250 employees. And that's purely because of the demographics of the Dutch market. As I said, the sector that generally we've seen least penetrated by cloud solutions into the overall business telephony base is what we call the mid-market section, so organizations with 50 to 249 employees. And we think that represents a real opportunity for everyone on this call in terms of that's a really sizable segment of the market to target with UCaaS solutions. So on the left here, it's the number of users installed in each segment as of the first half of last year. And this is the penetration rate. So as you can see, the smaller business sections already more heavily penetrated than the mid-market section, implying that there's that opportunity and that higher proportional growth opportunity in the mid-market sector as opposed to the larger business sector. If we look at the market forecast, and again, all of this data was fed back to us by industry. This is what we're forecasting based on that anonymized data for the latter half of 2024. As I said, we're in the research gathering phase of that now. So if anyone on the call would be interested in taking part in Cavell's research and reaffirming some of these numbers in terms of what you've seen in the market in terms of growth by segment, we'd be really interested to hear from you. But what we were forecasting is actually strongest growth in terms of percentage proportion in that mid-market and large enterprise sector. Large enterprise because of the dynamics of the market, and the strong mid-market growth here that you can see at nearly 6% due to the general under-penetration of solutions within that sector historically in the Dutch market. As you can see here on the left, we've highlighted that down in terms of the numbers of users. So in the latter half of 2024, we were forecasting the Dutch market to grow on average at about 5%, and that constitutes more than 150,000 users. And we're forecasting similar data for 2025 and the first half of 2025. So even in the Dutch market domestically, which is already a very mature and competitive market, there are hundreds of thousands of users that are going to be deployed on UCaaS systems, net new UCaaS users, I should say as well, every year. So a really sizable opportunity for everyone in the channel to take advantage of potentially. One thing that I did want to talk about in a bit more detail is our long-term forecast. And what we're looking at here are the number of cloud communication users installed in the Dutch market. So as I said, around 3.5 million at the end of 2024. As you can see, we're still forecasting that really significant growth. So around another 1 million users are going to be added to the market. And I'll come on to the type of solutions that we think are going to be competitive. So if you look at your Cisco WebEx, your Microsoft Teams, generally we think providers who can offer market-leading solutions from the world's leading UCaaS providers are likely to take more of that market share. We do anticipate, and I'll come on to the competitive landscape in a bit more detail, that the market share of the top 10 providers in the Dutch market will increase proportionally as smaller businesses with their own self-developed platforms will struggle to keep up with development on the likes of WebEx or a Microsoft Team, for example. The graph on the right here goes back to those penetration rates that I was talking about. So as you can see, the dark mauve is where the penetration was in terms of at the end of 2024, and the light mauve is what we're forecasting for 2028. So by 2028, we think the Dutch market will be really heavily penetrated. So more than 80% of the overall business telephony users will be using a cloud-based public cloud or a UCaaS solution for their telephony. So I think having a UCaaS proposition within your channel portfolio is obviously critical, and considering one of the market's leading platforms, whether that be Cisco WebEx, whether that be Microsoft Teams, I think is also going to be really important as they've seen a lot of success previously in the market. One factor I did want to talk about, so we're still forecasting this strong cloud growth, as you can see here. One of the things I did want to talk about was the overall business telephony market. So although we're forecasting the UCaaS cloud market to increase, we do actually anticipate that the overall business telephony market in the Netherlands will fall. This is a trend that we're seeing across developed markets globally. We're seeing it in the US and the UK, for example. And I'd be really interested for feedback from anyone on the call in relation to this as well, is that what we've seen is when a company has migrated from a traditional premises-based system where they maybe have had 300 users, all with DDIs for internal communication, all with their own phone numbers. When they've migrated to a Cisco WebEx solution or a Microsoft Teams solution, they haven't generally migrated all 300 users and given them all external telephony capabilities. Partly because they'll be doing what we're doing on this call now, a lot of peer-to-peer on-net calling, and that negates the requirement for external telephony. So what we're seeing is in developed markets, the overall business telephony market falls slightly over a 4-year period. That's our forecast. But the cloud market is where the growth is. So I think that's the really key thing to consider as well, that the legacy PBX market is likely to contract slightly, whereas the cloud market is where the particular growth is. I wanted to touch a little bit on the competitive landscape. that we're seeing in the Netherlands in a bit more detail, just to talk about that. And as I said, the top 10 providers in the Dutch market. So as I said, all of the data that we get back from providers is anonymized. And you can see I've put the top 10 providers on the list here, which Evolve IP would be one of them. We don't attribute that to any particular order due to the anonymizing of the data, but I'm sure many of you on the call will be able to sort of jigsaw identify who is who from the top 10 list. But the top 10 providers in the Dutch market control nearly 80% of the entire market. And we actually anticipate that that's going to increase in the future. The larger providers who are able to invest more in development, more in partnership with the world's leading UCaaS providers, are likely to take more and more market share going forward. So I think that's a really key factor to think about. If you're a channel organization, are you aligned with a large partner who is going to equip you with the right UCaaS solution in order to capture more market share? So that competitive landscape really important and very key to consider when you're considering your key strategic partnerships and alignments. One thing I did want to talk about in a bit more detail was Microsoft Teams. Microsoft plays a really strong role in the Dutch market. So I think having a provider that might have a direct routing option or operator connect capability could be a really key consideration for a channel provider within communications. So as of 2024, we think about those 3 million cloud communications in the Dutch market, nearly a fifth of those are deployed via Microsoft Teams, and the vast majority, as you can see on the graph on the left here, are deployed via direct routing. As you can see, the light green section of this is Operator Connect. We do forecast that Operator Connect will become more popular in the Netherlands in the future. KPN have only recently joined the program. There are a number of providers now certified within Operator Connect within the Netherlands. And the dark red caps you can see on the bars here are Teams Phone Mobile. And as I said, it's only just become available in market through Odido, but we do anticipate that in the future there will be demand in the Dutch market for Microsoft Teams Phone Mobile. But that's in conjunction with other mobile UC and FMC solutions. Cisco, obviously, with WebEx Go, with a comparable solution that's actually had quite a lot of success in comparison to Teams Phone Mobile, partly due to some feature function shortfall that we can go into if anyone's interested in any particular more detail. What I also wanted to cover as well was looking specifically at the channel. One of the things that we've developed at Cavell is a tool to analyze, effectively we scrape publicly available HTML data to look at what channel providers are talking about, what solutions they're talking about, and they're advertising on their website. So the graph on the left here, we looked at channel partners who are selling UCaaS to see what supporting services that they were selling alongside. So as you can see, nearly 90% offering managed services, more than 60% offering security. I think the one I really wanted to highlight here was CCaaS. Less than 20% of the UCaaS providers that we've analyzed are offering contact center as a service. And I know we're running separate webinars within this series within Evolve IP looking at the contact center market opportunity. And I think that provides a really strong area of potential growth for all of the channel providers on this call. Have you selected a partner who can offer you a UCaaS and a CCaaS solution that's going to allow you to differentiate from the majority of your competitors who aren't offering CCaaS and also leverage some of that potential revenue opportunity? But as I said, we'll touch on the sort of CCaaS market opportunity in a separate webinar. I talked a little bit about on this slide about other areas that UCaaS providers are selling alongside UCaaS. And I think that's a really important factor for a number of reasons. And the core one of those is what we're actually seeing is a decline in average revenue per user from a purely UCaaS or cloud communications basis. So the graph on the left here in the dark column shows the average revenue per user split by a business size segment that's paid in the Dutch market according to our data, as I said, that we get fed back from the industry. As you can see, forecasting out to 2028 in the light mauve columns, we do forecast a pretty significant fall in average revenue per user. As I said, within that figure, we do only include the core revenue for UCaaS. So the associated license, any numbering and minutes and termination associated. We don't include value-added services. So with core average revenue declining on a UCaaS side, as a channel provider, what do you need to do? You need to augment that falling ARPU in potentially other areas. Those that I talked about, potentially CCaaS, potentially managed services, and potentially other value-added services, which I'll come on to in a minute. However, despite this falling ARPU, it's not all doom and gloom. On the graph on the right here is the forecast quarterly revenue figure in euros for the Dutch market. And as you can see, at the end of 2024, around 120 million euros per quarter, we think is the sort of core revenue. That's increasing to nearly 140 million euros by 2028. So we're still expecting growth in the market, but actually that's going to come from net new users. Like I talked about, those potentially 500,000 new users that we're likely to see deployed in the Netherlands over the next 5 years, the increase in revenue is not going to come necessarily from them paying a higher price. It's going to come from the net new users in the market. So one of the key factors I think is really important to consider there, if core average revenue per user is falling, and providers and channel providers need to augment their offering with value-added services, what are some of those value-added services that you might explore? So, and what I've highlighted on the slide here are typical value-added services that we see attached to either WebEx Teams or Microsoft Teams as a point of view. So I think aligning yourself with a particular provider who offers these types of value-added services as part of their portfolio is a really key strategic decision. So as you can see, things like call analytics might see an attach rate of 10 to 20% in your base to relatively minimal average revenue per user per month uplift, but nonetheless still significant. Contact Center Lite, and I think this is where the WebEx portfolio is actually really strong. What we've seen is Cisco bring down a lot of the capabilities that they had in WebEx Contact Center and make them available in WebEx calling. Some of the more advanced routing capabilities, call queuing capabilities, and artificial intelligence capabilities. And all of those can add additional value-added services and potentially significant revenue and attach rates to your core UCaaS base. So again, considering a provider that can equip you with the capabilities around these value-added services is a really important decision, I think, going forward in the future. The real golden egg, which I sort of alluded to previously, is sort of full contact center. And as I said, we'll be doing a separate webinar on that. But the average revenue per user for full contact center licenses, as most of the people on the call will be aware, it can be 10, 20x what providers are seeing on UCaaS. So if you can additionally add full contact center capability to some of your customers, you can really augment some of those revenue streams. The one thing I would say though, and having come from a channel background myself, I appreciate that as a channel organization, you're going to be potentially limited in terms of resource and capability internally. If you're an expert in selling telephony, are you going to be an expert in selling contact center? Potentially not. Therefore, you need to be able to leverage a partner who's going to be able to help you in some of those more complex deployments. So have you got a partner who has an advanced market contact center capability? Are they going to be able to help you locally in market with architectural help, professional and managed service assistance where required, and real knowledge of the market's leading solutions like WebEx Contact Center, for example. So I think it's very easy for me as a sort of market analyst to say, oh, consider these value-added services and adding them to your portfolio. As a channel partner, you need to make sure you've equipped yourselves with a partner who can help you deliver some of these value-added services. I wanted to move on from the competitive landscape and what we're seeing in terms of pricing to some key market trends. And as I said, most of the research that we get from the Cavell data is fed back from service providers working in the market. We anonymize that data and that feeds into our data models. As well as that, as I mentioned up front, we survey tens of thousands of businesses every year across the world to see how their requirements are changing. And what I wanted to do is just take you through a couple of key findings, which I think will be really interesting for everyone on the call. So first of all, I wanted to look at the strategic goals, and I've highlighted the data specifically for European companies here. And what we asked during one of our surveys was, what are your strategic goals for your communication services over the next 3 years? And as I said, we put these questions to just end user businesses across segment sizes, so small businesses, medium, large, and very large enterprise. And I've split the answers here by business size segment. So what I've done as well is I've just highlighted the top 3 most commonly selected responses per segment. We actually provided a list of about 20 potential options, and also all respondents had a write-in option. So it wasn't that we sort of limited their options. They had a sort of wealth of things to choose from and could have written in their own answers. And I don't think it will come as a surprise to anyone on this call that in small businesses, the number one strategic goal was reduction of costs. And generally, reduction of costs, as you can see, appears across the board here. Cost is always a factor. Whenever we run these enterprise surveys about any type of technology, cost is always a key factor. And I know from the channel providers that I've spoken to and that I've spoken to on this call, cost and cost consciousness is always going to be important. So I don't think that's going to go away. What I really wanted to highlight here, additionally, was the pink boxes that are starting to appear. So we asked businesses their top strategic priorities, and what's come back is to use AI to drive better efficiency and productivity. So when we actually drilled down into that in a bit more detail and asked those businesses, what do you mean by that in terms of use cases? They don't necessarily understand the exact use cases that are going to help them do that. They have quite a sort of nebulous concept of what they want artificial intelligence to do. They want it to help them drive better efficiency and productivity. The onus is really on us as technology providers and you as the channel organization to help them understand how to do that. So as I was talking about previously, Cisco have put a lot of effort into AI within the WebEx stack. There's a lot of interesting use cases there in terms of call summarization, auto actions, other AI features around natural language processing. And as you can see, larger businesses were more likely to say that to use artificial intelligence was more important than reduction of cost. I think that also comes in and heavily links to the dark green boxes, which you can see here, which were improving cybersecurity and compliance. And I must confess, we've conducted this research across markets for 6-7 years now. And generally, security within UCaaS and communications generally was considered almost table stakes. There was much less focus on it from an enterprise business perspective. However, as we've seen demand for AI and adoption of AI increase, we've actually seen that businesses are more concerned about their cybersecurity, their data security, their compliance, and their data sovereignty. So if you're going to, as a channel organization, be offering solutions with AI capability embedded and AI productivity and efficiency gains to your customers, you need to be able to pair that with cybersecurity capability, ensuring that the UCaaS solution has potentially local data sovereignty options in order to meet the needs of those customers. So I just thought that was really important to highlight there in terms of what we're seeing. Small businesses, very cost sensitive. Larger businesses want to utilize AI, not sure quite how they're going to do it, but they want to drive better efficiency and productivity. But in turn with that, you need to be able to ensure cybersecurity, compliance, and data security. I also thought this would be really interesting for everyone on the call. We also asked enterprises what are the top criteria for choosing a telecom provider, and I think that is obviously valuable for everyone on this call. So as you can see, the data tallies quite well. It's always good from our perspective from the Cavell side when the data matches up. Smaller businesses, their top criteria for choosing a telecom provider is price. And again, we provided a list of about 20 options. There was a write-in feature, but smaller businesses much more likely to be price sensitive than larger businesses and looking for those cost-effective options when they're choosing their telecoms provider. What I wanted to highlight from your perspective, from a channel organization's perspective, were the dark green boxes here, which rise in importance according with business size. And that's expertise in a specific technology niche area. Now, as I said previously, coming from a channel background myself, having resource, expertise, and personnel in every area of technology is not necessarily going to be possible for a small channel organization. Therefore, you're going to have to be able to leverage a partner and a technology vendor ultimately who is an expert in those areas. So say that's contact center, say that's data management or CRM. You're going to need some capability and assistance from your partners there, because it rises in importance. With bigger businesses, they are going to expect you to have expertise in those technology areas, and therefore you're potentially going to have to leverage a particular partner to do that. I think that's really important, because one of the key trends that we're seeing globally is demand from enterprises to use a single provider where possible in supplementary and supporting technology areas. So the graph you can see on the screen here, again, split by business size segment. We asked organizations, would they prefer to buy their communication services from a single or multi-provider? So that might be contact center from one, UCaaS from another, value-added services and call recording from another. As you can see, the majority of providers in each segment would rather use a single provider than multiple providers in different areas. And that's when we've asked more detail on that. It's because of that premise of one back to pat, one partner to deal with in order to help with any issues across those different technology areas. So I think as a channel partner, what hopefully you're seeing in the market, and as I said, I'd be really keen for feedback on that, is more and more of your customers want to buy more services from you. You're the trusted advisor, you've already got the customer relationship, but it goes back to that point I was making previously. Do you have the expertise in those particular technology areas in order to meet their requirements, whether that be UCaaS, whether that be contact center, whether that be any other of those value-added services areas? So choosing your strategic partner that's going to help you do that is a really key factor. I just sort of finally, in the last 10 minutes, wanted to take you through a sort of couple of market trends that we thought were really interesting. I think would hopefully interest everyone on the call from a channel perspective. So first of all, one of the key ways that we were seeing organizations differentiate in the market is by looking at particular vertical solutions. And as I said, I think differentiating with UCaaS is increasingly difficult. UCaaS features and functions are becoming increasingly homogenized. As I said, the market's leading brands, so if you look at your Cisco's, you look at your Microsofts, are becoming increasingly difficult to keep up with if you've got your own self-developed platform. And actually, the differences in between the platforms, and I'd again be interested for feedback, from whenever we do feature comparison, relatively negligible. There's obviously some strengths in some areas and others. So how do you differentiate? One of the key ways that we've seen service providers and channel organizations differentiate is by specializing on particular vertical markets. And what I've done, I've highlighted on the left here the most popular vertical markets to specialize in. So they tend to be healthcare, financial services, public and local government, education, and retail and e-commerce. And again, I appreciate from a channel perspective, it's actually quite difficult to have maybe a sales specialist in local government, but you can leverage a partner and a vendor who does have a sales specialist team in financial sector, or in healthcare, and they can help you build a vertical proposition in that particular area in order to go to market and succeed and win in those particular verticals. So I just thought it was important to highlight there that vertical markets could be one of the key differentiators and something you could utilize as a channel partner in order to differentiate yourself and try and succeed in a particular facet of the market. I've talked quite a lot about artificial intelligence during this presentation, and what I wanted to highlight on the graph here, so we spoke to communication service providers and channel providers, and we asked them, are you adding AI capabilities into your products? And as you can see, 93% of the providers that we spoke to said they either have, they are doing at the moment, or they're planning to in the future. Only 7% said that they weren't doing that. And this, as I said, this study was 6 months ago. I should imagine if we repeat it now, the figure would be even higher. What you need to consider here from a channel perspective is that you are going to be competing against solutions that have AI capability embedded in them. You're going to be competing against other UCaaS solutions that use AI within natural language processing, within auto summarization, within automatic action recognition and assignment. And you need to equip yourself with a solution that already has that AI capability, allowing you to compete against your competitors. But also going back to that enterprise data that I showed you previously, that is also going to meet enterprise requirements to increase efficiency and productivity. If you don't have a partner that can utilize AI within UCaaS, then you are potentially going to be competing on an unlevel playing field against other competitors in the market that are already utilizing AI within UCaaS in order to meet particular market demand. And just a sort of final point that I wanted to touch on, and a little teaser to another webinar that we'll be doing in the series, looking at customer experience and contact center. As I said, traditional UCaaS average revenue per user is falling. Contact center, and specifically CCaaS revenue, is really resilient and can be 10, 20x, 20 times what you might see from a user perspective on UCaaS. So we're actually forecasting really strong growth in the Dutch market in terms of cloud contact center as a service, CCaaS. And we'll come on to that in a lot more detail in one of the follow-up webinars. But I just wanted to highlight on the slide here that we're forecasting actually the number of agents in the market will stay relatively static. Where the growth is going to come is within CCaaS, is within contact center as a service. I don't actually have the slide on me here, but it's from a recent study that we did. 64% of the organizations that we spoke to said that they would like to buy their unified communications and their contact center from the same provider. So ideally, you want to have a partner who can offer an integrated UC and CC option like Cisco have with WebEx calling and WebEx contact center. That integrated UC and C story is really strong from an enterprise perspective. So I think to fully leverage the contact center market, which obviously we'll talk about in a lot more detail on the up and coming webinar, that is going to be a key factor. Have you got an integrated UC and CC capability? I realise I've now waffled on for a solid sort of 40 minutes, and I can see some sort of questions have come in. So Jennifer, I wanted to hand over to you if there are any particular questions that have come in from the audience.
Thank you, Patrick. Let me just check. So we have some questions here. So there's a good question around the growth rate. So given that the Dutch market's projected 4.9% growth rate in H2, in the data that you've got, how does this compare to other European markets?
Yeah, that's really interesting question actually. So actually, the Dutch market growth rate is slightly less than we see in a lot of other European markets, and that's primarily because of how mature the Dutch market is already. The pre-penetration of cloud-based solutions. If you look at markets like France and Germany, for example, there's been much less uptake of cloud. So therefore, the growth rates that we're forecasting in France and Germany tend to be into the teens in terms of percentage, just because the market hasn't already moved. There's a lot more scope for growth. The Dutch market is a lot more similar to the UK. So we're forecasting very similar growth rate in the UK. It's already a very mature market. So generally, what you see is the sort of S curve of technology adoption. So you enter an accelerated growth phase, and then as the market reaches maturity, you tend to see the growth slow. And I think that's what we're seeing in both the UK and the Netherlands, that growth rate starting to slow. And that's why it's so important, I think, to be exploring other areas as well as UCaaS in terms of those value-added services. But still, I think despite that sort of growth slowing, as I said, it's not all bad news. Overall, quarterly revenue forecast to increase by more than 20 million euros a quarter over the next few years. So there's still a lot of opportunity out there. But in terms of growth rate, because of the maturity of the market, the Netherlands and the UK slightly slower than what we'd see in sort of France or Germany, for example.
Okay, sure, that makes sense. I guess there's another question here too about the opportunity for growth. So obviously there's some factors, especially in the UK with the PSTN switch off. So with the transition from landline to fibre optics, how will that impact us? Does that provide a more opportunity for us to take on new customers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Dutch market, as I said, already one of the most one of the most advanced in terms of the connectivity availability, partly due to the sort of geographic nature of the country and the size, the connectivity available. But there's still some really significant opportunities there. And I've just jumped back to the sort of segmentation. As I said, we're forecasting pretty big growth at the sort of top and bottom of the market. So the micro business sector, so 0 to 9 new employees, and also the sort of larger mid-market business segments. So I think the way to think about it is looking at those specific segments where we think there's going to be growth, so maybe the smaller end of the market and the larger end of the market, but also what I was talking about previously in terms of verticals. I think increasingly leveraging the next gen connectivity that's available is going to be key to accessing some of those verticals that might have been slower to move. You look at local government, public sector, which tend to be the sort of laggards in terms of cloud migration. We have actually heard both within the Dutch market and within the UK that some of those generally more slow to move verticals, financial services as well, are actually starting to look at cloud communication solutions. So yeah, I think connectivity provision is going to play a big factor, and there's definitely still a lot of opportunity there. It's just about making sure that you can sort of differentiate your offering from competitors, whether that's with segmentation, verticalization, or customer experience, as I talked about at the top.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's also when I saw in your graph a lot about, and I spoke about it, I think, in the UK session too, about reducing costs. And obviously it's a very competitive space and you don't really want to be doing that. So it's all about adding value. So with the customer experience and having those value add services on there. So I think it's really important for people to add that into their stack offering, for sure.
Jennifer, honestly, that's the thing that we talk to providers. So we do a lot of strategic consultancy with businesses globally, both in North America and in the wider world now, actually, as well. And the traditional telephony revenue streams are definitely falling. I'd be really interested to anyone on the call who thought they were sort of seeing any different there. What that means is, and as I said, when I was sort of going through the value-added services piece, it's really easy for me to sort of say as an analyst, oh, sell some other things then. What you need to look at is, what is your core customer base? What is your ideal customer profile? What are they likely to buy alongside the existing services that you sell to them? And these tend to be some of the most common things, some of the things that you talked about. Contact center, which I know we're going to have another webinar about, bespoke CRM integration, handsets and devices. I put handset as a service here, and apologies, I've still got the price in dollars, but it roughly translates into euro now anyway. But a lot of those value-added services, that tends to be our sort of key advice to channel organizations and communication providers, is look at supplementary supporting areas. Look at these areas that complement telephony, rather than thinking, oh, are we suddenly going to become an expert in AWS, for example, and sell cloud infrastructure? Probably not. What your customers are used to buying from you are telephony solutions. Therefore, they're most likely to buy supporting supplementary value-added services. So those would be the sort of key areas to focus on.
Yeah. It kind of comes back to the endpoint discussion that we've had with our resellers as well, starting thinking about the endpoint. So obviously there's the handsets and also the voice as well woven in. You need to think about that before anything else, really.
Yeah, completely. And we've done some research on the device market, and I think for a while people have been talking about the death of the desk phone. Every time I speak to any provider about desk phone sales, they're still really resilient. They're still doing that. I think what's happened is there's still increased demand for desk phones, and then that is combined with the devices, headsets, personal devices, but also, and I haven't got any slides in the deck around here, but increasingly meeting rooms hardware. So Cisco obviously have a range of meeting rooms hardware. Microsoft Teams have Microsoft Teams rooms. There's a real opportunity for providers in looking at those small huddle spaces and the devices that are going to equip people to sort of collaborate. Now saying we're sort of in the hybrid world sounds very pandemic, but we are definitely in that world now, where there's going to be a collaboration of remote and fixed working, and equipping organizations with the endpoints, like you said, both from the device side but also from the software side, is obviously really, really important to that, and provides a really good opportunity for providers.
Yeah, it's like that consultative sell that we always talk about as
Yeah,
well. So
absolutely.
it's understanding, and then that then talks about the verticals as well. So obviously, if you're a vertical specialist, there's certain verticals need certain devices. So yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, we don't have any more questions, but thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time, and we will send this recording out on email. And yeah, just let us know if you have any questions, and talk to your partner managers, and we will get back to you. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.